What is up, guys? Welcome to episode 14 of the SashaT podcast, a Whatnot original. We're going to do our first Q&A today. Felt like it was needed, bringing on a lot of guests. I think we're at 13 episodes for guests. So wanted to bring on a guest. You awake? Straight? Good. Sheesh. I got scared there. But anyways, guys, yeah, I wanted to do a live Q&A, kind of interact with you guys, bring some questions, and hopefully answer some stuff for you guys, and talk about the market and all that good stuff. So I'm excited. I'm going to get into some of these questions so far. Tabs Slab said, is alt mainly high end? No, it isn't. It isn't high end. They do everything, anything from like $100 card to $100, $200, $300,000 cards. Most of you guys probably know alt with their liquid auctions. They had a liquid auction yesterday, which many collectors and investors and just people in the market in general had a lot of viewpoints about it, just because a lot of prices of cards that we thought would do certain numbers didn't get there. They run auctions every Thursday or every 2 weeks on Thursday. So you're seeing a lot of these premium cards that you don't see every day, run in auctions every 2 weeks. So it is affecting the market. A lot of football does decently well on there, but a lot of basketball is taking hits on there. So yeah, a lot of collectors aren't happy. A lot of collectors, they see these price points, and it is bringing the market down in some sorts. I was at a show in Newport Beach today, and that was one of the main topic points. Was, hey, did you get anything off alt? What did you think about the price points? I mean, cards, that do, for example, there was an 03 Jordan Exquisite, first year Exquisite, horizontal, 3-color patch, BGS 8.5. That card did about $33,000 on the auction. Still an insane amount, right? From 2 to 3 years ago, saying a card did $33K, that's wild. So it still is a fantastic number. But just, I think a month or two ago on PWCC Premier, it does 56,000. So, that is a huge gap to what, somebody would have thought that card in general would go for. And that's happening not just on that card, but a lot of cards in general. So, it is interesting to see what alt does. I think they really got to ramp up their marketing from a marketing perspective. I just feel like they could be doing way more right now. We did have Adriana on the podcast about a month or 2 months ago, and she was talking about, she didn't get into depth about their marketing plan, but she did talk about they are, gaining information and are going to put out their marketing. It seemed like at national or, national thereafter. So in my personal opinion, I really think they need to ramp up their marketing if they want some of these cards to reach higher price points. And also, if I was them, to be honest, I look at their cards from, $50 to $5,000, and those do really, really well. Those do what, current market should be doing. So it would be interesting to see if they shifted from those big cards and just focused on, 1 to 5,000, because they're crushing it there. People will send their cards in consignment there, and then kind of move over to the 5 to 10 to 15. Because, when you get to those ranges of cards, 100,000, 50,000, stuff isn't doing, for the most part, what it is supposed to be doing. And that, comes into many factors as well, the economy in general, recession, all those little things. But I really think that, some sort of switch up, needs to happen, because, they have big cards as well. They hold as investments, I believe. So it is definitely an interesting cycle. A company like that, a big company like that, getting a lot of investment money in, being able to shift a market like that, to me, from somebody just like as like a business perspective, I think that's like super interesting and dope, and a lot of things you can kind of take away from that. But in terms of, dealers going to shows, investors, collectors, it really does affect, people's collections and how they go about buying, selling, and trading cards. Is the so this is a really good question. Berserk 90 said, is the generational gap affecting older cards? I would say no on that. I think there's cards for everybody. And in terms of vintage has held the strongest during these last couple weeks and couple months. You see people wanting to buy 52 mantles at all-time high price points, right? So I think that stuff is actually the safest out of everything. A vintage card, going on a auction house like Golden or Premier or Heritage or Alt, that's a card that there's true collectors for. A lot of these modern cards, you know, um, there might not be necessarily an end consumer, or the end consumer is harder to find. There's going to be a lot more, flipper type, buyers. Whereas vintage, you'll have those true collectors going after cards, and showing kind of the true market for it. So yeah, I don't think so. Um, These are really good questions in so far. Uh, Plays for the National. So the National this year is going to be in Atlantic City, um, in New Jersey, right? That's in New Jersey, right? So from what I'm hearing, it's going to be the biggest it's been so far. I'm going to have a table I'm going to set up. Um, I really enjoyed the last National, and I think one thing that people don't realize about big shows like that is like you get to meet all the people that you've talked to online, where necessarily like you've never really even seen in person. So it's always cool seeing those people, seeing how their collections have evolved, and just seeing what people are going after. I remember last National, football was really hot. So a lot of people stashed up football from basically now summer till late July when they go to the National, and that's where they went to sell. So I think having like a game plan heading into National is also like really key. Um, you want to know like, well, what are you going to go after? Are you going to go in there trying to buy? You're going to go in there trying to sell, or you're going to go in there trying to, trade. What is your kind of goal for National? Is your goal just to meet, different collectors and just enjoy your time? That's amazing too. If your goal is to go in there for more of a business aspect, all right. So like, what is your game plan for that? So I really think getting a good game plan going, for National is something that makes a lot of sense. And also, it's not cheap to get out there. Getting out there is like probably like, especially from California, it's $1,000 round trip ticket. It's crazy. And then staying at a room, right? It's probably around $200 a night. So, game planning what your expenses is going to be, and how you can kind of minimize that. Maybe you split a room, with a friend. Maybe you do an Airbnb instead of a hotel, right? All those little things, I think if you figure it out and you can kind of minimize your expenses, once you're there, it kind of frees you up to be able to do what you want to do while you're there. Somebody asked personally, are there plays for the National you're going after? I don't really think so. I think I'm just going to be, I'm going to set up. So I'm going to be setting up as a dealer. I'm going to be bringing in kind of a wide variety of inventory. We'll bring some raw stuff. We'll have graded. We'll have sealed wax. So just kind of, the same things I always do at a show. Try to buy as much as I can at reasonable price points, and try to move stuff, trade stuff, and just have a good time. Again, it's like 5 days of just like buying, selling, and trading. So there's going to be times where you're going to be, at least for me, last year when I went, there's times where I literally just needed to take a break, go to the room and chill. Because like if you're doing that every single day, it definitely does take an effect on you, in terms of like being like effective during these trades and stuff like that. And I think it's also going to be cool for this National because all these companies, like especially like Whatnot, just right behind me, right? They're going to have a booth, and all these companies that kind of have built up over the last couple of years, they're going to show their mark at the National, and I think that's going to be really really cool, to kind of see how the industry has progressed essentially, over the last 2, 3, 4 years. Before Chicago last year, there wasn't a National because COVID, so that was insane. And even last year, international people couldn't come to the National. This year, they're going to be able to. So there's going to be a lot of cool, intricacies at this event that I'm going to be excited about. And it'll be cool again, just seeing people that you don't get to see, right? Somebody said stay away from base. I agree but disagree. Like today at the show, right? We're at the Newport show, and we bought base. We just bought base at a margin point that we were comfortable with, right? So I think what you're regarding to, and what we're seeing a lot is certain base cards every week are kind of going down maybe 5%, 3%, 7%, whatever it is. Um, so all that changes is it factors into what price point you're buying in at, right? 2, 3 years ago, I remember when I went to Burbank the first time, they were cashing people out at like 90% on base cards, which these days that's unheard of because it was so liquid at the time. Where making that 5 to 10% was relatively, I wouldn't say easy, but it was pretty easy. Um, Whereas now, if you're buying base, you're realistically going to be that in that 60 to 80% range because of, the market we're in today. A lot of people, especially in the chat right now, are saying market's dead, market's dead, market's dead. I went to a show today, guys. Like I said before, the market was not dead. People are buying, selling, and trading. It's just the matter of how do you shift what you're doing, whether you're a dealer, collector, or investor, to today's market. So for me personally, what we were doing is when we were getting in base, we said, hey, we'd love to buy it, but this is what we're going to be at. When we're buying, patch autos and stuff that I'm more comfortable, holding an inventory for a while, we can pay stronger on that. When we're buying sealed wax, well, what is it, right? Is it something that we believe we can move really fast? All right, we can pay strong on this. Is it something that's we're going to have to hold for a little while and it's kind of trickling down? All right, we're going to have to be at X price because of that, right? So I get it. It's definitely an interesting time in the market. Things are changing um, beneath us. Um, we have all these new factors in the market. We have the economy where it's at right now. And that kind of goes back to where you want to be in this market, right? How much, of your, collection do you want to have, or net worth do you want to have in this market, right? Because stuff doesn't go up forever, right? Stuff, when it goes up, there is a downturn. And when there's a downturn, there's going to be another upturn, right? So, and a lot of these times where a lot of people are shifting away from buying, you'll notice that that's actually the best opportunity to buy. Because, like for example, last year and a half ago, when stuff was so hot, everybody was buying. Price points were at all-time highs. Now that price points are maybe half of what they were last year, people aren't buying, which is kind of weird. It's interesting, right? So there's some psychology, I guess, that goes behind that too. I'm not saying go buy everything right now, but I'm saying if you're doing your homework, you're doing your research, and you feel confident about certain plays and at price points that they're at, whether that's half of what it was a year ago, this could be a potential time to have an opportunity, to make a play. I do think stuff is going to, continue to take a hit as well. But again, if you're doing your research, you're doing your due diligence, there's plays to be made. Tab Slab says, any tips on how to acquire bigger cards? I think trade is one of the best ways to acquire pieces that you wouldn't think that you could have gotten. For example, like let's say you're going after a card that's $5,000 and maybe you only have 3,000. Buying inventory at 3,000 that maybe is worth 5,500 to 6, and then taking that inventory to the person, right, and saying, hey, look, this is 6K value, or maybe this is 5,500 value. You'd probably take 4,500 or 4 for the card. This is better trade value for you to liquidate, right? So I think trade is honestly one of the best opportunities to move up into cards. Now there are intricacies with that. You need to find out what they're specifically looking for, right? I see a lot of people make the mistake if they don't ask that question beforehand, which I think is a major L. If you figure out what they want, like let's say they have a LeBron card and they want a Jordan auto, going and trying to find that Jordan auto, maybe they'll even give you a premium on your evaluation of that because you found that card for them. So I would stick with, look, trade is one of the best ways to gain bigger cards and bigger assets. And then also, let's say you have a big card that is tough to move for you, money-wise, trading down on that asset is also another fantastic way to be able to liquidate and get, to where you want to be on the card, right? Let's say you have a 10, $1,000 card or $1,000 card, let's say $1,000 card, you can take, 1,400 and trade in that card versus taking maybe 750 cash because you can't sell it for 1,000, right? So there's a lot of ways to go at that and around that. But I would say if you really start understanding trade and start doing that, especially going to trade nights, that's really helpful for how to learn. That can be a major play in how you can build your collection. Cardboard _ E, that's a gnarly name, said, as someone who doesn't buy sports cards, is it better to start buying and learn market now, or just watch and continue to study what happens, in the next few months and see where I can come up then? I think if you haven't done your research and due diligence, I think it's just not the right play to just go buy cards. I think the best way to go about it is learn the market that you're passionate about, like effectively, like put in 20, 30, 40, 50 hours, 60, right, into that market, research it, study the cards, study the sets, study the grades. And then that's how you become efficient in that market. And then that's when you can actually put $1 into that market and be effective. I think anytime you go in and just kind of go in blindly, you're pretty much always going to lose money unless you get lucky. Hopefully that makes sense for you, brother. Berserk 90 said, not dead. It's effed up. You can't buy a 1,300 box and get $100 in cards. Well, I think what you're talking about is breaking, right? I think breaking, something that everybody has to understand with breaking is that it's always most of the time going to be a negative return on investment. And I think that's one thing that a lot of breakers do really well on, of like creating like a fun environment to have fun and let people know, like, hey, most of the time you're not going to win, but it is a fun way to kind of gamble and unwind versus going to a casino. Does it still show up on there? Like the screen?
It's still showing the it's showing this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's on StreamYard.
Yeah, but it's not showing the tap's not back up.
Yeah, I know. We're gonna use the backup on StreamYard. You see what I'm saying?
Can you click here in 30 minutes, or?
I just clicked it, so.
We're straight with 30.
Yeah, so just click and click back on. Oh, these are really good questions. Wait, so we're back up basically, right?
You should click this.
I already did it.
Okay, so
no, but I'm saying on Whatnot. You on Whatnot right now?
Oh, Whatnot was always been streaming.
Yeah, so it's streaming still?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Tab Slab said, your favorite card in your collection currently? It's a really good question. I think probably my favorite. Oh man, that's tough. I really enjoy Exquisite. Exquisite is one of my favorite sets of all time. It probably is my favorite in terms of brand and what it stands for, and the artwork behind it. I would say Exquisite cards in my collection are my favorite. And I do have a couple Kobe, like LeBron and Kobe Jordan dual autos that I really enjoy. That stuff is always stuff that I buy for inventory, but I'm okay with like holding it for longer periods of time. Just because like I understand the card and I understand that there's true collectors for the card. And yeah, like for dual autos like Kobe LeBron or Kobe Jordan duals, there's not like more of those coming out, right? There's only a certain amount that's out right now that is going to come out. So I think long term, like those sorts of cards, whether we're kind of in a downturn right now in the market, people want to say, like those cards, although they can go down, I think are stuff that can hold strong and over time just show appreciation. So those are kind of the cards that I enjoy. I also I'm a pretty big Muhammad Ali collector. I love vintage Muhammad Ali cards, like from the 50s, 60s, 70s. Like I really enjoy those. A lot of those maybe aren't like terms of value, like a crazy amount, but it's something that I enjoy collecting and having in my showcase. And when somebody comes to the table, being able to like explain that to them. Um, so yeah. Cardboard underscore E said, "Who's your top three favorite sports players and sports, dead or alive?" That's a really good question. I would say Kobe, of course, right? Everybody kind of knows that I'm a pretty big Kobe fan. Um, Muhammad Ali would probably be two. Um, I do have Muhammad Ali as like the greatest athlete of all time, but Kobe is my favorite athlete of all time. So I'd have Kobe one, Muhammad Ali two. Number three, that's a tough one. I would probably either go Khabib, I think Khabib, or like Floyd Mayweather, I think would be really dope too. So those are the three that I would choose personally. Um, I think Kobe. If we want to bring this back into the cards, Kobe affected the card market so much in terms of bringing people into the industry. I remember when Kobe passed away, his cards literally 2, 3, 4x that day. Um, and I think the reasoning behind it was because people wanted to just have a piece of what like Kobe represented and stood for, and they wanted to have a piece of him. And and sports cards and cardboard represented that. Um, and so that's why like I think Kobe had a lot to do with bringing people into the card market. I remember when people started buying Kobe Topps paper tens, and then they shifted into autos and patch autos and exquisite and duels he really in a lot of ways brought people into this market and that are still in it today. Um, so it's really interesting to kind of look back on and see. Um, Tab Slab says, "Do you like modern basketball cards like this year's rookies and upcoming rookies?" Yeah, we buy modern basketball cards all the time. At the show today, I think 60 to 70% of our buys was modern basketball. Um, what did we buy? What did we buy today, Franklin? We bought a jaw card. We bought a jaw card today. Luca Prism Silver rookie today. We bought a Kobe White card today. A lot of basketball. That's all modern stuff we bought today. Now, are we buying that of 95% comps? Unfortunately, no. If we could, we would. But we buy it because that's a lot of what we do. We do modern basketball. Now, is that a really high risk, asset? Like, who knows? It depends on what you're buying at, but prices have, gone down on that stuff. So whether the thing I think that people don't necessarily understand is, a card can be, for example, $1,000 last year, right? And maybe we're buying into it at 800. And that card today could be $400 and maybe we're paying, 285 on it, right? So it doesn't necessarily matter what the price of that card is because we're just buying it at a price point that we feel like we feel comfortable into buying in it, and we can then put out a competitive price to the consumer. So yeah, it is interesting to see like when people look at the market and they say, hey, that card's down 50% since this time last year. Of course, many cards are, but what's more important is like what your margin point changes to, right? Like how can you adjust to be competitive in the business? Because I know for a fact a lot of people have left, right? A lot of dealers have gone. A lot of collectors that I've usually seen aren't there, right? So this is a competitive industry at the end of the day, right? So you just have to adjust what you're doing to what the market is today. And that's how it will be at the national. That's how it will be at other shows, in my opinion. And So yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a weird time in the industry, Franklin.
Definitely is. I feel like national will kind of reset everything.
That's what people are saying. They're saying when national hits, it's going to be like hot. But I also feel like people are banking on that too much in a way. Like in terms of people holding their stuff for national, where I'm like, dude, just sell it now,
Yeah.
and then you can have money for national in a way, I guess.
People took a big slap in the face with the auctions recently, so people kind of have a sour taste in their mouth.
Well, that's what I was talking about. Alt, like last night, Thursday, I had multiple phone calls of people saying, "What the fuck is going on?" Which is legitimate. I mean, bro, a LeBron refractor 10, they had two running at the same time. Did 38,000, I believe 42,000. Golden ran two like 2 weeks before, and it did 50 and 54. And before, a couple of months ago, those were $80,000 cards, right? But keep this in perspective. This is what people, because when I say this, I bet people are going to be like, oh, like the market's like crashing. Let's really look through price points. A LeBron refractor rookie PSA 10 3 years ago, at bullpen trade night, I remember it was a $10,000 card. $10,000 card. 7 to 10. That card shot up. The high sale was, I believe, 220 to 240,000, like a year and 2 months ago. Now that card settled at around 100K. Then it went down to 80. Then it went down to 70. Then it went down to 60. Then it went down to 50. And now it's a $38,000 to $40,000 card. So from a 3-year window, that being a $10,000 card, 38 and 40,000. If you look at it from that aspect, that's a 4x. That's amazing, right? But it hit a peak and now it's settling. And I do think that 38 and 42. I think because, again, I really think alt should focus on like 5K or less. I think they crush it at that, and then I think they scale from that. But I think right now what's going on with like the economy and like what their marketplace has shown over the next couple months, unless I don't know something unless I don't know something and I'm undereducated, which I'm just talking from like a consumer perspective, then like do what you got to do. But I really think that maybe they should just focus on 5K or less.
They have the market for whatever. They don't think it.
They have the marketplace, but their price points aren't doing what a Golden or a PWCC would be doing. You know what I mean?
That's better for the buyer.
It's better for the buyer, but see, this is the issue. Before, it used to be when you'd buy on alt, you could show somebody that comp and be like, oh, that went like crazy low. I'll pay you this much for the card, right? Now it's becoming that is setting the actual comp. Does that make sense? So like, for example, like a Lucan Orange rookie 10 did $46,000 last night. That was like a 60, 70K card just like a month ago, right? So I know a person who bought like it the last 2 times before the 46,000, and I know the person that bought it for 46, but it's like, it's not like that asset is liquid as much anymore as it would have been a month or two ago. It's like the auction is really affecting the market in a lot of ways. So I don't know. I think it's like a cool thing to kind of geek out on and really look at it from like a micro perspective. It's interesting, and it's going to be interesting to see like auction houses going forward now, because a year ago a lot of people loved auction houses, reasoning being they would hit all-time high sales continuously, and people like that because it would show the comp, because before there wasn't comps for these cards. Now the auction houses aren't going to turn away cards. They're going to continue to take in cards because their margin point and their profitability is based off of their percentage off these cards, right? So they're going to continue to do this, and I think what that's going to continue to do is affect price points, right? So it's interesting to see, and we haven't even talked about PSA yet. We haven't even talked about PSA. Let's get into PSA. PSA brought their, I believe, economy submission to $30 a card now, which I think is amazing. I think I'm seeing more and more people starting to grade cards again, and that margin point is back, where you can kind of send in a card that maybe is $200, send it into PSA, and try to gem it and make margin point that way. I'm excited about that. I think that brings liquidity back into the market in a lot of ways. Whereas before, when they stopped grading, I think it was tough. And you don't have to spend like $500,000 just to grade a card. I think that was like insane. So that's like an amazing thing for somebody, whether they're starting out or a collector that just wants to send their cards into the PSA. But yeah, I think that's a good thing for the industry. What did we see at a show today that we thought was interesting, Franklin?
Everybody trying to sell.
Everybody was trying to sell.
Everybody trying to sell. Nobody's really buying.
But I think like everybody wanted to sell, but they were so high on their prices. Like we made good deals. We actually, I forgot to say this. We bought an insane collection today. We bought an insane collection today. That was an interesting one. I don't know how many cards was in there. Probably like 10,000 cards. Now this is like a low end collection buy. Like it's going to take a lot of work to liquidate all this stuff. But the buyer came up to me, or the seller came up to me, told me he had this insane like large collection. And instead of him bringing it and wheeling it in, we decided to just go out to his car, made it easier. Looked through the stuff for about 20 minutes and came up with a number that I kind of thought made sense. Was able to get a deal done on that. And yeah, made a play. So that was interesting. That's going to take a lot of time to liquidate. But there's always deals like that at shows where, there's margin points to be made. It's just, that one in particular is going to take some time to go through and process and get up to speed on it. But yeah, in terms of the show in general, yeah, people were high on their stuff. Do you think, Franklin, that people are going to eventually have to like come down on their price points, or do you think they're just going to hold it at like what they think that they can get on it because they're into it for so high?
It depends. People who are in very high last year, and like they refuse to lose money on it, so they want to just sit on it. But then you have people who don't really care and are looking to move the money elsewhere, so they're trying to just get whatever they can get. Because like you gotta really, at a certain point, you gotta understand like
what the card's worth now.
Yeah, my card's not.
I think a lot of people are in that situation where they're into cards too high and they're trying to get as much top dollar as they can on it, but people aren't like paying that right now, and people are tight on money right now too. Whereas they don't want to go out and spend $5,000 on a card.
That's the thing. That's why, like you're saying, with the auctions and all that stuff, it's like it takes a rare buyer. I learned that early, where like low number stuff and like the high end stuff is nice, but it takes the right buyer, and that could take months of time to sell it.
Yeah, and I think being able to just get the what they can get for the card, and then I think what you don't want to see is somebody get what they get on a card and then they leave the market.
Yeah.
You want that money to be reinvested in the market. And I think what's happened over the last couple of months is people maybe have like taken that money and kind of went into a different market.
I know a lot of people was like going crazy. They were taking the money and putting it in NFTs.
Yeah.
That was a quick a lot of people were doing that.
They were cooking.
People were taking in crypto to do NFTs.
Yeah. Yeah. But now NFTs are down too. I mean, NFTs are down, stocks are down, sports cards. Sports cards. Housing hasn't come down yet, though. Not yet.
It's not in the front eye, but if you talk to real estate agents, they'll tell you like it's bad. My neighbor is a real estate agent. He's like, bro, it's
because the whole thing started because they brought interest rates up.
Yeah,
so that affected everything.
Really,
but that affected stocks. That affected crypto. That
people don't really know that. So like, if you're not in the front view, you're not really seeing it.
Yeah. Because a year ago, money was so free flowing, where people were just like, oh, boom, spend. A lot of people spent on credit. Credit is piling up, and they're like, oh shit, and then liquidity's tough, and now this is where we're at, right? So, and again, I think in a lot of ways, this becomes a huge opportunity with people that are like know what they're doing, right? Are whales in whatever industry they're in, where they come in and they're really particular in what they want to buy, and they're putting it away. I know one guy in particular. I would definitely call him a whale, um, and he is going and buying. He's trying to trade, his cards that are maybe 5, 10, 15, 20,000 that he bought 3, 4 years ago for nothing, and traded into like a huge card that like is at a price point right now where he's like, bro, in terms of um, assets, if I can shift this into one asset like this and hold it throughout the next 5, 10 years, I'd rather do that than trying to liquidate all this stuff or do something else with it. So I think that's really interesting too, having money into like assets of like pieces that don't come up every day, whether that is in whatever market, right? I think that that's something that you could like view from in general. Somebody asked, what would you do with $200 at a show? I would try to buy like,
Nicest one raw card you can find, probably.
yeah, you can either go a couple ways. You could buy a nice raw card that you think that would gem, buy it, send it to PSA, grade it, or you can buy like bulk deals, kind of how we bought today, where like you can buy like in a $400 worth of raw cards for 200, and then flip that for like 325, and then take your 325, do the same thing, same thing, same thing. It does depend on how you want to kind of go about it.
You got a clientele though for it.
Yeah, and I think ways you can move that stuff, going to a card show and just moving it there is amazing. Facebook's another amazing way. Whatnot's another amazing way where you can move that sort of inventory and build a following. Um, there's and then doing it on multi platforms is the best way to go about it, right? Yeah, I mean, you have to be versatile in this market. You just have to be I think people took for granted what has happened over the last couple of years, and now they're starting to realize that like this is an actual business versus like what it. Not saying it wasn't like a year ago, but this is like real shit now. You know what I mean? Like you look like a place like Burbank, like they're innovating like every 2 weeks. Like they changed the fishbowl now, and they have like a mini card store in there, right? I think continuing to push that standard of like what you think is capable for your collection, your inventory, your business, I think is essential, right? Yeah, I mean that's what I would say. I think we got kind of like I think we got a little too in depth on that one. What else you seeing, Franklin? I think we were bringing us some good topics.
You think Jordan Flair right now is a play?
Do I think Jordan Flair is a pet play?
So everything's low. That's got to be a card you know is gonna go up.
I know that I knew two people that had two PSA 10s, and one of them moved it in the last 2 weeks. And the other person is looking to move one now. And I know somebody in particular that does a lot of private sales with those cards, and he says he has no buyers for them right now. It's so weird. Everybody was a buyer at 500 or 400 or 300 or 600,000, and now that it's 200, there's no buyers. Is that weird to you?
That's what should be a play, right? Because like
It should be a play, but I think this is one of these areas that I'm flabbergasted, because it's like when people don't like when other people aren't buying something, then everybody else gets scared. You know what I mean? Like it's weird. Like if you really believe in this market, you should be buying right now. I mean, that's what we're doing. We're going and we're buying. We're buying at price points that we're comfortable with. We're buying.
maybe it's not everybody has that negotiation skill to be able to buy at a good price point, so they kind of stay away.
That's a good point, but I think that's more of an excuse than it is anything else, right?
I mean, I know one thing everybody's not afraid to buy right now. That's football.
That's a good point.
Everybody's on that.
Everybody's buying football right now.
With the same mindset, though.
But that's the same point. So there's going to be a point where everybody's going to sell football.
National.
They're national.
So it's like everybody has the same mindset, but is everybody going to be able to offload? Because if everybody's not looking to offload, only so many buyers. Might be a bloodbath.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to move some before national, right?
Sure. If you don't, you might be stuck on the island,
Yeah.
waving the red flag.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's when you always have to be like a little bit of ahead of the market, right? And having like a versatile inventory, I guess.
Yeah.
Right, like this time, like last national, nobody wanted F1. Everybody thought it was stupid. Now you go to a card show, every single dealer has F1. I'm like, weren't you talking shit about F1 like a month and a half ago? And now people have F1. I know dealers in particular that said F1 is stupid. I would never buy F1. It is a fad, which I mean, like price points can go down. I actually do think F1 comes down a little bit, but it has done the complete opposite of what other people thought it would do. You know what I mean? Like football right now, everybody's thinking, "Oh, it's a buy," which I think it is. But I think you have to be able to continuously move stuff and not hold everything, right? Like, and this isn't like cycles. Like I think like like there's going to be another cycle of like a run up of cards, right? Like and people coming in and being super excited and stuff like that. Um, so like how do you prepare yourself for that as well, right? You know what I mean? Like well, like a lot of people talk about like how were certain card shops or dealers able to capitalize on like what we've had over the last couple of years, and that's because they were in this industry for 10, 15, 20 years before that. So they set up their business to accelerate during this time, which they should. Those people should be the ones that get rewarded, right? Because they've been in this industry for that long. Exactly. So like a place like Burbank, right? Um, they got rewarded, of course, because they crushed it. They're continuing to crush it. Exactly. Like a lot of people think Burbank, um, is fueled off of their showcases. But I think if you really look at it, it's actually the warehouse where they sell thousands and thousands of cards a day.
Perfect marketing.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Rob doesn't miss a day.
Rob does not miss a day. Rob does not miss a day.
Ryan might be sick, but Rob ain't sick. Rob is not missing a day. He might have the record for longest day's works.
Like, yeah. The only time he didn't was COVID.
I mean, Rob, man, he's grinder.
But it's funny now, like you see the card shops now. I'm hearing like people go to card shops they're not buying.
Yeah, but people are start buying because it's a hobby. I feel like that's kind of. I feel like the slow in the market is just people who were here for a business leaving.
Yeah.
That's why you see like the down market because there's not as much money being flown through because not everybody is here for just.
But that's why Ultimate Pastime always says buy what you like.
Yeah.
You buy what you believe in and you like. Like even if it goes down a bit, like you're cool with it. You know what I mean?
A lot of people only they weren't really here for that. They're here just to make a dollar. So they're all leaving. That's why the market is kind of.
But I feel like those are all the people that are mad.
I mean, yeah, but for the most part, I feel like they left too because
they got burned so many times.
They got burned, and they're like, "Well, I came to make a quick buck," and everything was dropping. Like, screw this, like, and then they sell off, and that's why you see all these low stuff being sold because like they don't care. They want to just get out, take their L. Well, they don't have really time to really wait because it was a give it scheme that never took off.
Yeah, they're just in it for the quick buck, not really actually like wanting to be in the industry.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, there's people like that in crypto. There's people like that in stocks. I feel like too, right? I mean,
everywhere: housing, stocks, crypto, cars. Gotta you
just got to do what you do on an everyday basis, every day.
Make it a hobby, not a business.
I think you can make it a business, but you have to. You have to enjoy it like that.
I think that can be a priority. It's got to be hobby more than a business. I feel like.
But do you think a car, like, do you think like for example, Burbank sports cards. That's a business.
Yeah, but that's a business. That's different though. They like I feel like you really have to have the means behind it to make it a business. Like you can't come in here with hobby money trying to make a big like you know what I mean. Like you gotta have the financial behind it to really.
Yeah, yes and no. Yes, in terms of like when when um when for example like Burbank started their business, they probably didn't start off with that much.
Yeah, but you gotta.
And right now, like there's people that came into the industry, they didn't start with that much. And they've continuously been able to
Yeah,
move up. You know what I mean? I don't I think a lot of people that are opening card stores right now shouldn't,
nah, for sure.
because I see some of these guys and I'm like, well, like
Yeah, that's a little too late.
yeah, yeah, it's not too late, but also it's like they don't have like the passion for it. You can kind of see, you know what I
Just
mean?
want the money.
Yeah, they're just like, and I'm like, and then you ask them like, hey, why are you buying this? And like they don't have like a reason. You know what I mean? Like it's just like,
Yeah, did they see dollar signs?
yeah, like you really have to have like a passion for it, or else it just doesn't make sense.
Not gonna work out.
It's not going to work out.
That's why you see a lot of stores shutting down.
Well, Mark Ultimate Pastime always said like in the 90s, like there was a card store at every corner.
Yeah,
And now it's not like that, but I do think like some stores do go under, right?
yeah, stores is going under, but I know.
I think some stores are going to excel.
I think a lot of stores are screwed once
You know what?
Fanatics.
Actually, I don't think stores go under. I think they get bought out by other stores.
Yeah, isn't we'll talk about it, but we were saying the one company buying all the stores up, trying to have their name as all
Yeah,
the
we can't bring it up yet, but yes, that is happening. There are card stores trying to
monopoly.
monopolize. 100%. That is happening currently right now. That is a fact.
Stores are
Yeah, I think I said this before, but I think that I think it brings more people into the industry, but that doesn't necessarily mean card valuations go up. Does that make sense?
just more traffic doesn't mean.
More traffic doesn't mean like more like your value of your card goes up. I don't think that happens. I think it just brings more self-awareness in the industry.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. You get for breaks. Breaks probably fell out more.
I think Fanatics gonna buy out breakers to like break only like for Fanatics or something like that, or represent Fanatics, or only break Fanatics product or something like that.
I can see it.
Right?
That'd be pretty crazy.
I think a lot of stuff is happening like behind the scenes right now.
For sure. I feel like taking their time.
I think they're taking their time, but they're moving quickly.
They're not rush.
I mean, they have like 3 years left. It's like 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they'll buy Panini. I think Fanatics buys Panini.
Yeah.
That happens. Didn't Fanatics already buy Tops?
Yeah. Yeah. They want Tops, right?
They bought Tops. And so you'd buy Panini. Then what else? Upper Deck. There's Upper Deck.
Upper Deck's not really budging.
Upper Deck has LeBron signed to a deal and Jordan.
Yeah.
If you can buy Upper Deck and bring back Exquisite under Fanatics.
They probably wouldn't care about Exquisite though.
Why?
I mean, I don't know. They should bring it back.
Why wouldn't they bring back?
That's a good question.
I think Exquisite is probably the most sought after product for modern basketball. Not modern, but like basketball in general.
Yeah. That's true. Speaking of, don't you have a Jordan Exquisite selling?
I do. But that's like a card that I'm cool with, because that's a collector card. You know what I mean? I just think we're in this like time of like stuff is changing in the market, like in terms of like what price valuations is, and then these companies that are startups are starting to have to actually like work. You know what I mean? Like 2 years ago when a startup was happening, it's like, okay, like I see what they're doing. That's really, really cool. But now it's like, all right, now produce, right? Because startups in general are never profitable. They're not profitable businesses. It's just like this is what we're doing. This is like how we're doing it. This is our goal. And then like every couple months, like if you see improvement and you see it like growing, then you get more funding.
It's like in the first 5 years, only 10% of businesses are profitable.
Yeah. And even startups that are like huge aren't profitable.
10% in the first.
Like massive like startup like aren't profitable.
10% in the first 5 years.
So like I'm not saying these companies have to be profitable. I'm just saying like you have to understand like stuff that you guys do if you're bringing that much money into market affects the market, right? Like I guess that's something that like I guess people have to understand. Like it really does affect the market. Like what happened the last 2 days at the shows? People were like talking about auctions. And I see a lot of like great things like and like amazing things. I think the people that they have there are amazing. Some of them are like good friends. So it's going to be interesting to see like how they combat the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months. You know what I mean?
See what happens next 2 weeks.
Next 2 weeks. It's going to be like it's going to be interesting, bro. Like it really is. Like this summer is going to be interesting. Like
would that be the second to last auction before nationals?
they have an auction every 2 weeks. So it's June. Nationals like the last week of July.
Oh,
so there's some time. There's some time. I'm really excited to see the booths of like these startups at the National because they can crush it with like marketing there. Like the design and everything that they have, I think it's going to be really dope. Hopefully, I'm excited to see Whatnot's booth. Whatnot in Vegas had this like a pretty dope booth. I did a live auction with Whatnot in Vegas. It's like the circle booth had TVs, so I was doing the high-end live auction, and people were watching the auction on the TV, then seeing a card they want, and then bidding on it. Like there, it was crazy. So that was really cool.
Shout out Whatnot.
Yeah. Well, like Whatnot, like they market, like they, produce, right? So, like it's.
That's gonna be really interesting.
Yeah, and I think like again like another thing that's opened up for the last 2 years, like live selling, like for example, Whatnot, like this wasn't you going in like Whatnot 2 years ago. If you want to really look at it, this was Whatnot. It was Instagram Live. You'd have to go and like trust the person to like ship you the card or you're breaking the cards, PayPal them, like, and then like DM them your shipping address, and then them sending you the tracking and them shipping you the cards. Like it was no smooth process of like anything remotely like this. That's why when I like see Whatnot, I saw one, I was like, holy shit.
I think I bought a card off Whatnot early on.
Really? Really?
I remember that process of like just paying, hoping that the dude would send my card, hoping they take my money, and like just being on just.
But this is a smooth process. Like if somebody doesn't send you the card, like you get your money back. But also like you on Instagram, like there's chargebacks and like stuff like that. If you do it like whatever you do it on, credit card, whatever, you can't charge back on Whatnot, right? Like everything is like a locked in deal. You know what I mean? Like so like these are like the steps that like an industry takes that becomes proficient. This is like a perfect example. So like, what's going to happen 10 years down the line when somebody looks at the industry, you want it to be like, oh, this is like a super efficient, smooth, fun, amazing industry. That's what you want, right? Every year you want like proficiency, like and stuff to move forward, and card shows to get better, and grading companies to get better, and content to be better. You want everything to move forward. So It's going to be an interesting next couple of
For sure.
the time period is going to be interesting. Also want to talk a little bit about our next couple guests. We're going to have Rizzo Sports, Jeff Rizzo, the owner of Rizzo Sports. He has 2 card shops here in Southern California, on the podcast. That is actually going to be tomorrow, at around 6 p.m. PST. You can watch it live on Whatnot. And then also we're going to have Chris Costa, who owns Card Vault. That is the card store that is in Boston. That's inside Gillette Stadium, I believe. Have you seen that card store? It's literally inside this. He's coming on the podcast. That will be Wednesday. He's literally flying out here to come on the podcast. It's really amazing. He was at VCon with us. Had a really amazing time with him. Known him the last couple years now. So I'm excited to get him on. With Jeff, he has a big announcement that he's gonna. We're gonna be the content space that's actually gonna break the news, which I'm really excited about. And then with Chris Costa, he also has some big announcements with his shops. 2 shop owners are coming on the podcast. I'm really excited about that. Gonna have some great perspectives, some great talks. Talk about what it's like owning and starting a card store, scaling the business, and all the kind of like little intricacies that you don't really see. Like when you kind of go into a card store, I feel like when people just go into a card store, they don't really see the back end of it. So I'm really excited to kind of get into that back end and what it really takes to own a card store with those 2 guys. In terms of the pod day, we're going to finish up here. Appreciate everybody tuning in to the podcast for episode 14 Q&A. I want to do a Q&A like every 10 episodes or something. I think it's kind of fun just to kind of sit back, chill with you guys, answer questions, talk about the market and vibe. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please leave a positive review. We'd really appreciate that. If you're in the Whatnot stream, man, thank you so much. Thank you for interacting with us. And I'll see you guys very, very soon. Alrighty.